Hi guys, Kevin Ellis here and welcome to this track guide for Twin Ring Motegi in the brand new Porsche 992. So first and foremost guys, as we head down towards turn 1, obviously you can see the curbing up on the left hand side just here. You're going to want to move over to the curbing on the left just before we start getting onto the brakes. This will allow us just to kind of open up the entry, and it sort of opens up the entire corner. By the time you get to the middle of the corner, it will feel quite it feels kind of claustrophobic, this corner. I feel like on the exit of the second right hander especially, the track really does tighten up, so we like to try and open this entry up as much as possible. And as we head into here, you'll notice obviously the 100 board up on the left and the 50 just a little bit further on, but we're going to brake just as we come past the 100. So from inside the car, the board will sort of go out of your viewpoint before you start getting onto the brakes. You can see we're getting on the brakes here, and the 100 board is sort of already past us. So it really is just sort of as you pass the 100, you start getting onto the brakes. From inside the car, so you're going to notice we're going down into third, and then down into second as well. You want to brush this first curb, this first apex curb, and then as you track out in the middle of the corner, you don't want to be way out here. You're going to see here we're keeping it pretty central. We're not really drifting way out to the curb on the left hand side. We're very much keeping it central, and for me personally as well, only really helpful if you get triple screens. But when I'm going past this white curbing on the right hand side, this is sort of my cue to get on power, just before we get to the end of the curbing on the right hand side. So you can see they were picking up throttle just there, then through the right hander, bring it back, clip the second apex, and just try and manage your upshifts to try and obviously manage the oversteer. The more throttle you can hold through that second half, the more time you're going to be able to gain out of there, and of course carry down this straight in towards turn 3. So again, similar to turn 1, move over onto the curb. This time we're braking just shortly before the 100 here. You can see we're already beginning to get onto the brakes. We're already almost at 50% brake by the time we've got to the 100 board. So we're going to be at threshold well before we get to the 70 just here. Like so. So we're at threshold by the 70. Holding that the whole way. Staying of course on the curb as well, and you can hit these cones on the outside, it's absolutely fine. They shouldn't get trapped under your car. And of course once you hit them, you want to start turning in for the corner, because obviously that then becomes grass. Similar to turn 1, we're just kind of going left now instead of right, but the exit here is just a little bit tighter. So again, I believe we're in second gear. Yeah, so we're down to second gear. Clip the first apex and pick up throttle just as you get to the curb on the inside as well. You can notice just there the left hand side tires onto the curb. Pick up the throttle, nice and gentle. Track it out towards the curb on the outside in between. You can see we're not actually getting full throttle at any point. This is just all about managing the power through here just to try and keep the car rotating and accelerating. But if you obviously get a little bit too aggressive on the power, then it will spin. You can see we gradually sort of turn it in for the second one, and this curb is sort of negatively cambered, so it will sort of push you back onto the track, so you don't necessarily want to get all up over it. You can see here we're getting to full throttle just before we clip it right there, so you should be full throttle quite comfortably before the end of this curb on the inside as well, if you want to check yourself against this. You see we're full throttle there. Then on the exit, track it right out. Probably going to end up having 2 wheels on the grass at some point. It's okay, it shouldn't really scrub too much speed off, but yeah, it's pretty normal for that corner to sort of wash out and just clip the grass. But down towards this 90-degree right hander, you can see we're on the brakes well before the 100 board. You see the 150 is way back here, that's way too early, so it's sort of like the 125, 120 sort of range that we're braking. Comfortably to threshold by about the 75, maybe even before that. And you can see we're right up against the curb, down into second. Turn it in quite late so that we can pick up the throttle away back here. You see we're already bringing the throttle in here, so we're hard on the brakes, getting it slowed down and keeping it nice and wide on the entry so that we can take quite a late apex and really carry the speed out of the corner, because of course we've got a moderately long flat out section after this, especially going uphill as well. So from inside the car you can see we're braking roughly the 120, maybe 115, down into second, turning it in pretty late, really aiming to kiss the late apex and really getting on the power, accelerating through the apex and back to 100% throttle pretty early. You can see here we ran just a little bit wide onto the grass, but we didn't really seem to lose any time from that. It was okay. And then of course we carry the speed up the hill towards the S's. Now as you come up to here, really fun part of the track. I actually really enjoy this circuit in general, but this section up here is really good. So as we're coming up the hill, you have the 100-meter board up on the right hand side. It's a little bit too early for braking. So you can see we're starting to get onto the brakes here just before the start of this curb on the right hand side. So you essentially want to brake so that you get to threshold by the 50. Because you can see as we get to the 50 here, you can see the brake input. It's really not changing too much. Like so. And again, you can see we're up against the curb on the right hand side. Just to open up this corner, because on the exit of this left, you don't really want to be on the right hand side of the track, because obviously we've got a right hander coming up, so you want to stay more as central as possible. But by doing this, it allows us to stay a bit more central but carry more speed through the corner, just because we've opened the corner up and we've reduced the angle that we need to go into the corner out. We've straightened that corner out a little bit because we've taken an extra power with the 2 on entry. So on the way in, we're braking so we get to threshold by the 50, gradually coming off the brakes down into third, and then turn it in for the left-hander. Want to try and apex quite late through here, picking up the throttle just around here as well, so you can see you get past the start of the curb on the inside, and then a few meters later, bringing in the throttle all over the curb on the left, help pull the car around, and you can see how we're still pretty near enough right up against the grass on the exit here. So we're making sure that we're opening up this right-hander as much as possible as well, or just to carry a little bit more speed through it. So next at the left, not quite getting to 100% throttle. You can get to 100% throttle here if you carry a little bit less speed on the entry, but if you really do want to attack the entry here, it's a send aggressively on entry kind of corner. And then as we flick it into the right, a little just small dab of brakes just to scrub a little bit of speed off, get some weight over the front tyres, obviously push them into the track and get the car to rotate a little bit. That's going to be, of course, just before we get to the start of this curb on the inside. You can see we're breaking away back here. There isn't really any obvious marks on the track or anything like that. It's more just sort of judging your distance, but then you can see we're sort of transitioning the car onto the apex curb again on the right hand side, and we're bringing the throttle in just nice and smooth. As we come around here, make the curb, turn the car, use the curbs around the circuit. They're really useful for getting the desired angle. Then on the exit here, you can see we're having a little bit of a lift, getting back to 100% throttle again, leaving a couple little tyre marks on the exit as we really pushed the exit as hard as we could. Get quite swiftly back over to the right hand side of the track for this next left hand hairpin. Then into here, you basically want to be at threshold by the 50. So I'm braking probably 80 meters out, I'd guess. Normally it's about 25 to 30 meters I spend getting to threshold from my initial brake. So on the way in here, you can see past the 50 board, we're basically at threshold, down into second gear. Again, using just a little bit of curb on the outside, but it can sort of upset the car at lower speeds. So I didn't really feel a need to do so through this corner, but you can see we're going to hold brake on the entire way. This is why trail braking is so important, especially in a car like this. If I was just to drive it in a little bit slower, so say I'm doing 143 here, if I was doing like 130 instead, and then as I get to, say here, rather than being on the brakes, I'm just off it, the weight of the car isn't really anywhere. It's sort of to the front right of the car, because, you know, that's just how the force will sort of transition to that side of the car. But when you're on the brakes, it puts even more weight on the front of the car, and it gives you a more positive front end. So if you're finding yourself really understeering on corner entry, chances are you're maybe not trail braking hard enough, and you really notice that here, that we're going to keep brake on the entire time that we're trying to get the car into the corner. The more I turn, the less brake I have until I get it slowed down. And you can see just here, like, obviously I've gotten the desired speed, the desired line. So at that point, I pick up the throttle just shortly before we get to the apex, and then we're going to gradually apply the power on the exit as we open the lock up. This car's a lot of traction at lower speed, so you can be quite aggressive on the power out to the curb on the outside, and then the exact same technique is going to work here as well. So we're going to brake roughly the 75 meters out at threshold by the 50, already beginning to drop brake out of it, down into second again. Going to enter kind of shallow, but we're not going to get all the way to the inside curb. We want to leave a little bit of a gap to that inside curb. And again, you can see we've got brake on the entire time, try to get weight over the front. You can see here we've actually sort of understeered slightly. We're normally do actually want to cut back and get onto the curb, but here you can see we've only really gotten up to the white line. We haven't been able to get over the curb. And that, you could probably argue, is a little bit too shallow an entry for me, so I've not given myself enough leverage to sort of turn the car. and also possibly not enough trail braking, so not enough weight over the front tyres to sort of engage them and get them in. But nonetheless, we didn't actually lose too much time through there. We managed to get on the power and rotate the car. But yeah, for sure, you definitely want to use the inside curb as much as possible as well. That does help turn the car. And then finally, into the final sector, probably one of the most technical sectors of any circuit. Definitely a challenging little section of circuit. So here again, we're braking around about the 75 meter or the 125 meter out. Sorry. So we're braking at roughly the 125, trying to get to threshold by the 100, like so. You can see our brake there. Once we go past the 100, stays very much stable, past where the 50 board would be, and only now we begin to slowly drop brake out of it. Down into second, turn it in, and the track really falls away from you right here on the entry. You'll probably notice the inside front lockup lights going here. See the slight inside rear lock there just on downshift. Down into second, now we've turned it in. And you're probably going to see inside front locks at some point. Yeah, there you go, a little flicker just there. That's just the track falling away from you. It's just a little micro lock as obviously the tyre comes off the circuit. But it's really important to not overdrive entry here, because if you can, it's very, very easy to get into a non-recoverable situation if you send it too deep on entry. Especially, you can see it from here how sort of downhill it goes. By the time you get to the apex and the track falls away, if you're going too fast, you're in a lot of trouble. So as we turn it in, going to clip the curb on the inside and pick up the throttle just shortly before we get there as well. You see just beginning to transfer from the brake to the throttle just before we get to that apex, like so. Using a little bit of curb on the inside as well, that does again help pull the car around. Again, it's really, really minor, but it's, you know, every little counts, especially when you're at the limit. You need every single bit of assistance you can to get the car to turn and get it to do what you need it to do. As we come under the oval, that's what this bridge is. If you weren't aware, that's where the oval goes round. You can probably see the turns 3 and 4 up at that end. Really great complex at turning. I think the oval was one of my favourites. Obviously, really unusual section. The oval with the near flat out 1 and 2, and the 3 and 4 is really tight and having to brake, and then obviously we've got the road course on the inside of it. I think is really interesting. But anyway, as we get into this final sector, we're flat out, clip the curb on the left, and then just shortly after we get off that curb on the inside, I'm going to gradually lift out the throttle and very slowly and gently get onto the brakes. It's just to try and slow down the weight transfer. If I'm just to lift off the throttle straight away and slam the brakes right up to 40%, it's a whole lot of weight going from the back to the very front very, very quickly. So this kind of gradual lift off and very slowly and gently onto the brakes. It just kind of slows down the weight transfer ever so slightly and makes the car a little bit more predictable. A little bit more predictable to work with. So as we come in, you can see we're going to keep it very much central as well. There's a nice seam that goes down the middle of the track here that you can use to try and position the car. You can see we've got near our left side wheels almost or no further out than this seam. You can see they're just to the inside of that. So if your left hand side tyres are on the seam, then that's absolutely fine. Turn it in, and just for gear selection into here as well, you can see we're in third at the minute. Drive it in third, over the curb on the left, and as we hit the grass on the left, we're downshifting to second just before we flick it to the right. And again, through here we got brake on almost the full time, keeping the weight over the front tyres, giving us this nice nimble change of direction. See, over the curb, downshift into second, back on at the brakes again about 40%, get the weight over the front tyres, give us some positive turning, and then right before we get to the apex curb, we're going to pick up the throttle here and send it right over the grass on the inside as well. Not quite optimal, but the car can handle it. It's pretty good on power down, as you can see here. Keep it nice and stable. Keep it on the curb and on the exit. And then with that, that's a run to the start finish. So hopefully this has been useful to you guys. As always, any kind of questions, feel free to attend the group coaching on Tuesday nights, and also ask any kind of questions in the car channel. But with that, guys, best of luck in your races this week, and we'll catch you next week for another track guide.